Back in the 1960s, nobody was coming here. Some scientists, there were a few residents from different parts of the world who landed here on a sailboat and decided to live here, but there was no tourism. And well, my father at the end of the day was an explorer, and he was a naturalist, and he was curious about anywhere where there were animals or birds or natural phenomena. And so it was quite natural for him to follow in the footsteps of Charles Darwin and come to these magnificent islands 50 years ago in 1967.
The name Lindblad has a special place in Galapagos. When Lars Lindblad came in the late 60s, it started off a new way of carrying out tourism in the Galápagos Islands.
One of the things that my father was often or almost invariably concerned about was what would be the effects of tourism anywhere in the world where it hadn't been before. When he came here in 1967, he immediately commissioned a scientist to do a study on what would be the long-term impacts if more people came to visit the islands. And what that scientist discovered and the recommendations that were put forth to the national park, they still are largely intact today. He also financed the first national park rangers back then.
In the early stages of the creation of the Ecuadorian Park Service, in 1968, when Juan Black and Pepe Villa, Jose Villa came, and the tourism industry, the tourism venture that Lindblad had started injecting ideas, injecting funds, injecting new ways of supporting conservation, science, and management.
Galápagos tenía lógicamente una vocación probada y enorme sobre turismo, y era necesario que las empresas de turismo empezaran a poner los cimientos de lo que sería la conservación y el manejo de Galápagos. Y con esa visión, Lindblad inicia su ingreso a esta escena. Y me parece que fue muy oportunístico, como la mayor parte de las buenas decisiones de conservación son oportunísticas. De manera que la presencia de Lars fue sumamente importante, porque era una persona que tenía una visión, se veía un poco más hacia adelante que cualquier otro empresario. Posiblemente la madurez que le daba por haber viajado tanto por el mundo, haber operado en tantos sitios, él entendió cuáles son los problemas que íbamos a enfrentar.
Yo creo que el Ecuador debe un homenaje al señor Lindblad, porque él lo hizo, lo puso en el turismo internacional a Galápagos. Al solo llegaban gente que era de mucho dinero y venezueleros, o personas que iban buscando el misterio de la baronesa, pero el turismo especializado, científico, lo empezó el señor Lindblad. Yo soy testigo de eso porque he visto este desarrollo durante los 50 años, pero él le hizo que se especialice en algo que sea amor a la naturaleza. Y él decía, tenemos que controlar. A cada turista le hacían sentir la necesidad de la conservación y de no dejar nada en las islas.
So the legacy from Lars Lindblad has shown that there is a continuity that is needed. There is an example that I hope that it could be followed by more tourism operators in the Galapagos Islands. And I think Sven Lindblad nowadays makes a difference to that operation in such a unique and fragile place like the Galapagos Islands.
My father unquestionably was the father also of what we call ecotourism. He was the first one to come up with the idea of bringing laymen to these wild places and connecting that experience with a purpose, if you will, that these were places that we had the privilege to visit, and we should become better stewards of these places so that they were there for future generations to enjoy as well. So when you think about that in the 60s, he was quite far ahead of his time, but people know him here in the Galapagos very well. They know what he did, they know what he stood for, they know how we have taken on that legacy and expanded it in a multitude of areas to help preserve these places into the future.